All right, hi everyone. My name is Rawane Issa. As he just said, I just finished my PhD and I'll be joining Galwa in the fall. Today I'll be presenting to you some work I've done with Nicolas, Alhaddad, Mayank, Varia on abuse reporting in secure messengers with sealed sender. End-to-end encrypted messaging systems are used by billions of users every day because of the valuable security guarantees that they provide. The rise of this adoption coincided with a growing discourse on content moderation fueled by the spread of misinformation, fake news, and online abuse campaigns in end-to-end encrypted messaging system. In this talk, we focus on a specific subtype of content moderation called user reporting. We investigate the apparent tension between user reporting as a content moderation mechanism and the privacy properties of end-to-end encrypted messaging system, and answer the question, what privacy guarantees can we maintain alongside user reporting? So let's go over what abuse reporting entails and what our desirable privacy properties are. At its heart, abuse reporting is a matter of allowing entities to trace back messages to their original source. In our setting, a user will send a message through a platform that has some level of network-level anonymity, and the message will be forwarded, and one of its recipients may choose to report it to an entity that we call the moderator, and that may be separate from the platform of the end-to-end encrypted messaging scheme. Accountability will only hold vis-a-vis this moderator, meaning that the moderator's knowledge of who sent the message is non-transferable, and the sender can always deny having sent the message to everyone other than the moderator. Without confidentiality, end-to-end encrypted messaging systems would be lacking, and we want to make sure that the abuse reporting mechanism does not reveal to users more than they would know from the underlying messaging system. And finally, we want to introduce a notion of backward secrecy that will provide users with the same confidentiality and deniability guarantees after they've recovered from an attack. Before going any further, let's just agree on what our threat model is. As I mentioned, we consider a platform that has some level of network anonymity. So it could be something like signaled sealed sender, where the sender of the message is hidden, or it could be something fully anonymous like Tor. The platform and the moderator will view one another as semi-honest, meaning that any token generated by one will be trusted as well generated by the other. And otherwise, all other parties will view one another as malicious and possibly colluding with one another. A malicious adversary is what you'd expect it to be. It has access to all of the user's material and can run arbitrary code on their behalf. And finally, we maintain the privacy of unreported messages. Now, there has been a long line of beautiful work that has tackled the problem of extending end-to-end encrypted messaging system with abuse reporting. But in this short talk, I will just be focusing on two, and you can find a more expansive discussion on them in the full paper. So how did prior work solve this problem? The work of Tyagi et al., asymmetric message franking, requires the sender to create a designated verifier signature intended for the moderator and prove for the recipient that that signature is well-formed. To the best of my knowledge, this is the only prior work to have considered network-level anonymity. The issue with this work is that it's practically a bit slow, and it does not consider users who want to forward the message. The work of Peel et al., on the other hand, source tracking, asks the platform to include a token to every message it relays that includes the identity of the sender, and that's probably bound to the body of the message. Now, this is an extremely efficient construction, but it requires the platform to have the same role as the moderator and to know who the sender of the message is. In this work, our core insight is to introduce a preprocessing stage where the moderator will a priori construct a token to its future self and provide the receivers with the necessary material in order to verify that the sender of the message did the right thing. The preprocessing stage will handle the bulk of public key operations, rendering the online stage much cheaper. To sum up our contributions, first we introduce a novel asymmetric message franking scheme with preprocessing, thus generalizing the definitions and guarantees of prior work. We expand on their security guarantees by also considering the notions of forward and backward secrecy. We then construct Hecate, a protocol that achieves these security guarantees using only standard crypto. And finally, we build Hecate into an existing Signal client in order to showcase said efficiency. Let's start with the first attempt. This is in no way the final construction. In an offline stage, let's have the moderator create a token for users that will consist in an encryption of the identity of that user and a signature of that encryption, and send that token, or a whole batch of these tokens, to the sender. Now, when a user is ready to send a message, they'll just append this token to the body of the message, and eventually, if the message gets reported, one of its intended recipients can just forward that token to the moderator. Now, since the moderator created this token, they can just trace back the message by just decrypting the piece they had encrypted, and they can verify that that encryption is fine by just checking their signature. This, in essence, is very similar to source tracking, except that we're staging the protocol and we're having the moderator take care of the abuse reporting pieces. This construction, however, is not accountable because there is nothing binding the body of the message to the token, meaning that all an adversary has to do in order to avoid accountability altogether is to just use tokens from other messages in order to implicate other people for their own malicious content. So we would rectify this by modifying the offline stage. We'll have the moderator additionally create a pair of ephemeral keys, the public key of which will be signed alongside the encryption of the identity of the sender. This will be signed under the moderator's long-term key material. Then the moderator will send all of these tokens to the sender. Now, when the sender is ready to send a message, they will sign the encryption of their identity that they fetched from the token alongside the message that they want to send under their private ephemeral key. They will store that private ephemeral key aside and will send everything else within the body of the message. Now, if a recipient wants to report the message, they'll send everything within the body of the message to the moderator. All right, so why does this work? Well, first of all, because the moderator can trace back the message by just decrypting that piece that it included in the token of the message. Second, all of these signatures are verifiable by any recipient of the message. Any recipient has access to the public key of the moderator that's available to everyone, and the public ephemeral key of the sender will be appended to the body of the message. And finally, the message is deniable because the sender relied on these ephemeral keys rather than its long-term key material, meaning that it could always claim that the moderator created the message itself. It has access to everything in order to do so. Great, but what's missing? Well, tokens, as I've described them, are inherently vulnerable to being indefinitely used in the system. If a user is corrupted and the adversary requests tokens on their behalf, then even after that poor user recovers, the adversary can still use their token to indefinitely blame them for illicit content. So what I'm trying to imply here is that backward secrecy will force us to introduce a notion of token expiration in order to meet its guarantees. So in our final construction, we introduced backward secrecy into the system by having the moderator and the platform append timestamps to the token and message respectively. The timestamps should be close to one another, meaning that if they're too further away from one another, any honest recipient will just drop the message and consider it expired. We additionally require these timestamps to be bound to the various parts of the message, so the moderator's timestamp will be signed along other pieces of the token, and the platform's timestamp will be signed along a commitment of the message and the token that the sender appends to the envelope of the message, so next to the encryption of the message. You can find the full details of the construction with the security analysis in the full version of the paper. Now let's switch gears. We have several experiments, and in our first set of experiments, we constructed Hecate as a Rust library that we integrated into an existing unofficial but widely used command line signal client called SignalCli. The computational overhead of using Hecate on the sender side, the receiver side, and in the end-to-end pipeline is minimal, and on average, it's completed in under a millisecond. We also measured each component of Hecate in isolation on an AWS T3 small instance, and to the left, we show the runtimes as a function of varying message length, and these runtimes were, again, extremely low. with the largest component running in 250 microseconds for messages with 10 kilobytes. And this particular component only happens per report, so not per sending or forwarding. To the right, we show our measurements for token generation, and we measured both the runtime and the price of generating varying batch sizes of tokens on an AWS T3 small instance again. The runtimes were, again, minimal, considering that token generation can happen during off-peak hours, and batches with 10,000 tokens were completed in around 600 milliseconds. The price was also negligible, and we extrapolated the price of generating 100 billion tokens, the rough number of messages sent through WhatsApp per day, to be around 35 cents per day. Finally, our overheads with respect to prior works are minimal, and we outperform the work of Tyagi et al. In every measurement. We occasionally incur a small computational and communication overhead on top of the work of source tracking, and that's just because we need to perform more public key operations to verify our additional security guarantees like anonymity and backward secrecy. To conclude, in this work, we defined a novel asymmetric message franking scheme with preprocessing, thus unifying and extending the security guarantees of prior work. We provide a construction called Hecate based only on standard crypto. And finally, we implemented Hecate on top of an existing Signal client and showed that it's actually extremely efficient. I'm happy to take questions now or later, and feel free to ping me for whatever reason. Thank you.